one that Vivian was filming now was so close that I could only see it in the monitor. I couldn't see it from where I was sitting. Well, I think this is the mother of the two smaller ones, but I could well be wrong. And we're not entirely sure whether they share nursing responsibilities yet, the two mothers. So hard to tell exactly whose mother it is, but I believe the mother of the larger cub has got a few scars on her rump that help me to distinguish between the two. Just got a question through from Nancy in Nevada. And Nancy's interested to know how much longer it will be until these youngsters start heading off from the den site alone. And it's a good question, Nancy. They take considerably longer to move off from den sites than other predators that we find out here. And that could be attributed to a number of reasons, especially the manner in which they acquire a lot of their meat is from scavenging and therefore being in dangerous situations. They therefore can spend almost up to a year at the den before moving off. And obviously they'll move between dens, but they'll often be kind of den bound for up to a year of age and also suckle for almost that period of time. So, unlike other predators like lions and leopards and wild dog, whose youngsters would start feeding on meat from around 3 months of age, these would be a lot less likely to be feeding on meat until much later on in their life, from around a year, when they would start to potentially move with the rest of the clan. They do suckle for a lot longer than other predators, and they also rely on milk for a lot longer and don't start eating meat nearly as young. I'm just going to reposition quickly while we have this opportunity. And some interesting behavior here. The adults urinating and the youngsters are sniffing around inquisitively. And this will be a form of scent marking. She could well have urinated further away from the den site. By her urinating right at the entrance, it will perform some communicatory functions and indicate to other hyena that come here that this is potentially, well, this is one of the owners of this den. So certainly an intentional maneuver on her behalf. Lois has just asked an interesting question. Morning, Lois. And Lois noticed that when the two cubs were when two of the cubs were chasing one another, one of the cubs, I think it was the cub in front, had its tail between its legs, whereas the other cub had its tail up. And would that be an indication that it was submissive behavior? Yes, possibly it was submissive behavior from the one in front that was being chased. It is a very good observation, but I'm not entirely sure that that was necessarily the case. It could simply have been different running styles between the youngsters. But let's watch closely and see if the this is too cute. The cubs are really playful this morning, and that could be because it's nice and cool after the rain we got last night. Sadly, it wasn't much rain, but it was some much needed moisture nonetheless. And just back to Lois's question, so we can watch closely if the cubs do chase one another again. It was the cub in front that had its tail tucked between its legs, therefore it may have felt like it was under threat, more threat than the one that was obviously chasing it. And the one that was chasing it had its tail high, flying high. Well, we certainly are getting spoiled with some great entertainment here and interactions with these youngsters. As you can see, the mother is less excited by all the play. And Nikki's just let me know that there's a few of you that are getting some great screenshots on Twitter, so well done to you. With the quality of the broadcast at the moment, I find a lot of your screenshots are far better than my photographs, which is great. It's keeping me on my toes. Update on the Nisikaya. It is active, 1 adult, 3 youngsters. Folks, we've got great news. Mark's found something really exciting and we're not going to waste any time and get straight across to him. So enjoy what he's got in store for you.
Guess what I found, everybody? A big boy. A very big boy.
Let's get a bit closer.
I do, Nikki, I do. I'm not going to say anything of who it is. I'm going to let viewers say who it is. Scott, you copy? Nikki, I'm on Twin Dams Road. Here I'm on Twin Dams Road north of Chelapan. A lot of people saying Mvula sounds like Raisa and Joanne. Just I'm gonna just try this radio. I am hearing Scott passing on the message. Maybe I won't chance it in case it cuts the signal. So it sounds like the message has gone out to the vehicles. Diane in Michigan saying Mvula, the daddy, but he's looking a little bit hungry. Well, it sounds like everybody knows this is Mvula indeed, even from the back. Now, what we can try and do, I would like to get to the side and then maybe we can go. Oh, never mind. I don't know, I'm going to have to move at some point if we get anyone coming up behind us. So, perhaps I should move off the road a little bit to the side. What can you do if a cat wants to sleep in the road? Not much one can do. Now, I was hoping that this was going to happen, and one of the things that I do find that when we do have some rain and the temperature drops a little bit, the grasses and the bush is quite wet. Now, it'll be good for stalking. It'll be good for hunting to some degree, although the grasses being wet can slow them down a little bit. But they will like to stay on the road because of the wet grasses. I'm glad it didn't go far. Now, who was that, Nicky? Bula Ray. How can I tell so easily? Because I can see the back of his ears. I suppose partly with his boy bits. Yes, he's got quite a large scrotum. But I could see not so much his right ear, but he has a very, very tatty left ear. His right ear, as you can see, there's a nick in his right ear as well. But obviously easier to tell from the left ear. He looks very small lying down in the road. And no, I'm not going to do a comparison right now, but I could try if he does move often. But it wouldn't really work because we'd have to follow him. to change position. Hello, old man. Just looking to see. Maybe try and go all the way around. Copy, thanks. Try and find the best way of viewing this young, or not so young, cat, so that it's as magic as it can be. And cannot interfere with other vehicles who might want to come and see. You see down the road if a vehicle comes.
I can see a little bit.
Isn't that funny? Okay, here it is. Maybe I didn't bring my camera this morning. I think what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Scott back at the Hyena den, and they are quite active, so we'll go over to Scott and we'll see what Scott has, and we'll stay with Mbula. And see.
Well, as you can see, these cubs are the most playful I've ever seen them personally, and that is why we had to tear away from a beautiful sighting, it sounds like, of Mvula. But while he's lying in the road, we thought that we would try and make the most to share this incredible interaction between these cubs with you. And if and when Mvula does get up, which he will at some stage, we'll link back to Mark and see what happens there. They really are playing quite viciously with one another, but this was important for them to start establishing dominance even from a young age. And it is known that hyena can compete ferociously with their siblings, even to the point of death, either by outcompeting them when nursing or by physically killing them. And I don't think that's going to happen this morning, but they are certainly playing quite ferociously with one another considering their size. But there's certainly been no bullying or no evidence of anyone being dominant over the others. They're all taking turns to gang up on different individuals. We've tried to position the vehicle in the best position possible to cover all of their little playgrounds, but they're covering a bit too much ground for us to cover all the bases from one position, so bear with us when they run out behind the bushes, but it's not going to be worth us stopping and starting the vehicle every time, because as you can see, it doesn't take long for them to come back. And well done to Mark for finding that leopard. He spent a lot of time following up for that leopard this morning after the initial reports of some audio in that area. So well done, Mark, for finding Mvula. And what a beautiful leopard that is. You may notice how this adult is less tolerant of the slightly larger cub, and as I did guess earlier, it does appear to be the mother of the two smaller cubs. Now, what's interesting about the hyena of the Sabi Sands is that, not always, but very often the adults will head out and search for food alone. Now, that's not always the case with hyena. They are always clan-orientated animals, so even here in the Sabi Sands, where we do have small clans, there is a hierarchy and a clan system within which the hyenas will be associated. But like I say, it's often that they head out alone, and that would explain why the other mother is not here at the same time, I guess. In other areas of Africa where clans move together when out looking for food, they would often then be on the same routine, and therefore be leaving the den sites and arriving back at the den sites at the same time. And that can be applied as a general rule to all animals in Africa. You get some animals that occur throughout huge areas in Africa, and their behavior will vary depending on the area that they live in. after all this playing around, they may have worked up a little bit of an appetite, it appears. And now will compete for the best spot with which to nurse. That's if their mother tolerates it. It looks like she may be trying to prevent them from nursing and may have already allowed them to suckle when she arrived back at the den this morning. And her stomach looks nice and full. So she's had success feeding, possibly not last night necessarily, but within the last couple of days she's had a good feed. I'm going to have to reposition the vehicle now, ever so slightly, now that the mother has changed positions. So bear with me while we do that. But as well, and you can almost actually see how all the soil below where she's sitting has been worn in, and she may well have also been urinating in that same spot. But you can see that's one of her favorite areas, and I've noticed on arriving at the den at other stages, that's often where she's lying. And I fear her movement has been because she doesn't want to be pestered by the cubs wanting to nurse, and if they continue to pester her, she will either give in, which it looks like she's just done now, or she would get up and move off. It appears now that she has given into the cubs' pestering and is now allowing them to suckle. It's incredible how obedient the slightly old cub is, because you can see it just sitting in the background there, minding its own business, and it would have received one or two nips from this mother when it tried its luck. So it would have been taught its lesson, but it is incredible, I find, how obedient such young animals can be. If you think to raising domestic dogs or cats, how uncontrollable they can be, and that's possibly because we don't raise them accordingly. Nicky's just mentioned that there's been quite a lot of chatter on Twitter regarding the noises hyena make, and they make a variety of different noises, but they are also known as these specific hyena as the laughing hyena, as they do have a high-pitched cackle, which they typically let out in situations of excitement or fear, around kills, fighting with other clans, would be the most common scenario in which you would hear them letting off this loud laughing cackle. But they also have a whooping kind of a howl that's more typically the audio of general communication, not necessarily in high intensity scenarios. And I really hope we can share both sounds with you at some stage in the following broadcasts, because it is an incredible noise to hear, both the cackling as well as the whooping howl. The whooping howl, the laughing cackle, I'm not going to attempt to reenact, but The whooping howl I'll have a crack at now, and it goes something a little bit like this. So that's my hyena whoop, and it certainly does need some work. It's not very close to the real thing, but it gives you an idea of the noise they make, and that's their general communication. Typically noise that we hear at night, not so much during the day. They're certainly more vocal in the night time, and we do hear that whoop far more often than we hear the cackle. Just to give you an update on Mvula, he is still fast asleep in the middle of the road where you last saw him, which is perfect because the hyena are putting on a great show for us now, and I wouldn't be concerned. Mvula will certainly get up at some stage and keep moving, so there's definitely some action to look forward to there with Mark. I'd be exceptionally interested in that position, so I'm going to be leaving the hyena den site. Okay, copy, will do. Okay, Nikki, we're going to need a link back to Mark. Folks, we've just got some exciting news on the radio, and it's really exciting stuff. I'm not going to tell you anything more than that, but I'm going to have to start heading off in that direction. And we're going to cut back to Mark with Mvula, and hopefully the animal will still be there when I get there to share it with you. But great news is that Mark's got Mvula, so enjoy what he has in store for you.
Well, welcome back to Mvula, everyone. I believe there's been some pretty impressive action going on at the hyena den. I did copy that. Oh, God. Yes, thank you, Nikki. Scott, I got it. I did, thank you, Nikki. Can we try and minimize radio talk, please? Finally getting a little bit of a roll out of him. He might be waking up.
I'm lost with Mvula here. Just dam. Dam road. Yeah, same on the road. Please.
Very busy radio this morning, and a lot of it has got to do with tracking the lions up north, but there's also stuff happening over on Arathusa. Quite a busy channel there this morning. Sorry, Mbula, don't like me touching the quarry bush. But it does get a little bit confusing with a lot of radio chatter. Not confusing, distracting, very distracting. Both radios are going. Now, I'm not sure if Scott's going to be leaving the den. But for the time being, we're going to stay here with Mbula. We are going to have to leave at some point because there are other vehicles that are going to come in to view him. Morning, Joyce, who's in Kansas City. Joyce wants to know why he doesn't fear the vehicles or the people. Joyce, the vehicles have been part of his life all his life. All the leopards here, in fact most of the animals here in the Sabi Sand have been born to vehicles. They've been exposed to vehicles from a very young age, and since a lot of their behavior is learned behavior from their mother growing up, and their mother has been through the same process, they learn that the vehicles are never a threat because the vehicles don't chase them. The vehicles have never become aggressive towards them. By the same token, they know that there's no food and it's got nothing to do with their prey, because how far out is Abel?
Still up on the opposite boundary.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
You'll fall when you get to Gary down.
I think my radio's fine now. Sorry, Joyce. We need to deal with many things at once here. They're aware of us, and they do get used to the Who's that from, please? Mbula's background. He was born down in what is now Lion Sands. As far as I know, his mother was Wutawalla. Wutawalla is a little dam on Lion Sand. I'm trying to think. There was the Rocky. What was that? Thanks, Nicky. I'm aware of that. To lie down somewhere else. I think his voice is asking how come they are not afraid, or I promise being on foot would be an entirely different story altogether if we were to be on foot with a leopard. Although they are getting used to it because they get tracked by the vehicles quite a lot. You'll find that they're not as aggressive as you might find leopards in other parts where there isn't this consistency in behavior of vehicles and people. With rather strict rules about how the vehicles and the guards behave, there's at least some predictability of on the part of the animals with regards to the vehicles. They know the vehicles are never going to drive over them, the vehicles are never going to chase them, so they do tend to hold sway over. Well, everybody keeps their distance, as is now. There's a lot of chatter, a lot of camera clicking, and he is, I suppose, getting a little bit tired of the attention. Good antenna. So his parents were two leopard down in the southern area of the Sabi Sand. He's about 10 years old. Just about a year younger than Karula, and has now made this his primary hunting ground. He is the father of the two boys we see, Kunyuma and Quarantine Male, and was most likely the father of the young cub that was killed by Hyena in December, Karula's new cub. Grace wants to know why we're seeing more leopard than lion lately. Primarily, Grace, because leopard have a much smaller territory. The lion that do occur here have a much wider, much larger range than the leopards do. In fact, you probably find sometimes you might get many different leopard within the lion's territory. So when you do... Oh, elephant shouting. A lot of elephant noise. He's listening to it too. Where leopard have become so accustomed to vehicles where they are quite relaxed, we get to see them a lot because they don't run and hide. There are places where leopard are a lot shyer than this. And the other side of that, of course, is that when there aren't weirers, and it can take lion a very short time to traverse this area. In this part of their territory, we don't have access to them because we cannot cover the amount of ground that even a single pride of lion can cover. Very seldom when there are lion on Djuma that we don't get to see them, because we find their tracks and we try and follow them until we find them. There's a pride just north of here in Buffelshoek that we see quite regularly, a pride known as the Nkahumas. And the guys have been tracking them up on Buffelshoek this morning. I don't think they've found them yet, but they are all up on Buffelshoek. All 8 of them. Size comparisons for Angie in Ohio. Morning, Angie. Size comparison between a lion, male lion, and a leopard, because Mvula's paws look pretty big. They are pretty big, but as big as his paws are, they're not quite as big as the lioness's paws. And of course a male lion's paws are twice the size of a female. Big male leopard, I'm afraid I have to give you kilograms, but an adult male leopard averaging 70 to 80 kilograms. Very big leopards, maybe 80 kilograms, which is about my weight. And a big male lion, we're talking about 250 kilograms, 3 times the weight of an adult male leopard. Of course, just lengthwise, height-wise, it's just an entirely different. It's like the difference between a Cocker Spaniel and a St. Bernard. Maybe not a Cocker Spaniel. Let's say a Labrador, or a Pointer. That would be a more closer analogy. A Pointer versus a St. Bernard in terms of size difference. Now, for a lot of history on not only the lion, the leopard, but the lion as well. But lion. We got distracted there. Marco in New Jersey. Morning, Marco. Seen YouTube clips of cheetah jumping on vehicles. Has leopard ever jumped on vehicles? Marco, the only place that it really happens is places like the Masai Mara, Serengeti, where cheetah ordinarily use termite mounds and any other vantage point they can get to see over the plains for hunting. And I suppose through the same process of habituation and familiarization with vehicles there, cheetah have learned that they can climb on the vehicles to get a vantage point and pretty much ignore the humans. I don't think it's ever happened with open vehicles. It's happened with the pop-top safari vehicles that you get in East Africa. I can't say that I've ever heard of a leopard doing the same thing, mainly because leopard don't necessarily need to be out in the open. They hunt in thicker bush. They don't hunt on the plains as much as cheetah do. And so they don't need a vantage point. They need to stay concealed. They're not a running hunter. They're a stalking and pouncing hunter. And they've got to get really, really close up onto their prey before they can pounce. I've heard of a leopard dropping into a vehicle because a vehicle parked, one of the open vehicles parked too close or directly underneath it when it was on a kill in a tree. Oh, yeah. Hat in the way. Sorry, hat in the way. That's what I was going to say earlier. George in Florida. Morning, George. No news on Birmingham boys, the males, the coalition of males who knows the Birminghams. I was going to mention earlier that the leopard and the lion here in the Sabi Sand have a Facebook page, either Leopards of Sabi Sand or Lions of Sabi Sand, and quite often you'll find updates. And sometimes people have a better idea, people out there have a better idea of where these cats are than I do living here in the reserve. But you'll also find that some of the individuals have their own Facebook page with a little bit of their history and of course photographs over the years, and Mvula's no exception. He does have his own page, and you can look for that at a Mvula male leopard is his page. But no, unfortunately I haven't heard anything about the Birminghams of late. Coalition of male lion. Brenda, morning Brenda in Virginia. Brenda wants to know what leopard normally do to protect their cubs from predation by other predators. Normally their cubs are pretty well hidden. Normally, there isn't really a normal anything out here in the wild, but there's some situations where a circumstance has it that no matter what length the leopard takes, whether it's hiding the cub and moving it periodically, there are always going to be situations where, not only for the leopard but for everything really, there are going to be situations where a competing predator will get hold of another predator's cubs, even same species, not only intraspecific but interspecific infanticide. And sometimes self-preservation is a very important factor to be taken into consideration, because it's far better to survive yourself and produce more offspring. Watch those thorn leaves. And I've got a land cruiser thing.
Sorry, Mark, man. I didn't even know you were there. Sorry about that.
Character. Sorry. Okay, copy. Let's go over to Scott Wallenbull. It seems like he's heading into the bush. We just had a bump on the Land Cruiser. You gonna be scared of Land Cruisers?
Yeah.
Me too. Me too.
Welcome back, and just to let everyone know, this isn't the reason why I rushed away from the hyena den site, but it is a wonderful sighting of an animal we don't get to see very often, the warthog. And there's so many of them of all shapes and sizes, and we're just standing by here enjoying this sighting while we wait our turn to join the sighting that I've rushed over here for. And I'm still going to keep that a surprise. There is a great treat in store for us, and we just need to be a little bit patient, as there were already a lot of game viewers in this area that were closer to the action than we were, and therefore on the standby process they are ahead of us. Now, the incredible thing about what we're seeing here is that there's a chance that all 7 of these piglets are potentially from one mother, which means she's had an incredibly successful litter. And the mother's the one at the back. I'm assuming it's just her that is the mother of these 7 piglets, because the larger of well, the second largest of the adults is a small female, and in all likelihood a daughter of hers from her previous litters. What wonderful little animals these are. And you may notice they're going down onto their elbows to feed, and they'll do that way they can use their nose as a shovel with more leverage from that angle, and that way they can access the roots of the grass, which they like to target as they get more nutrition from the roots than the drier blades of grass. Next, I'm going to need to reposition shortly, so I'm not sure on Mvula's status. Okay, copy. Let me just try and reposition here then. Okay, well, we are going to have to reposition here. Mvula is out of sight for now, but Mark is trying to relocate on him. So just to keep you updated on Mark and Mvula's progress, that is what's going on there. Station looking for Scott. Go ahead. Copy. Thank you very much. I am at the airstrip now. Morning. Go ahead. Thanks very much. Okay, folks, apologies for the confusion, but the good news is that we've been called into the sighting that we've come all the way here for, and it's exciting times, so stay tuned, don't go anywhere. We're about to see something very, very special. Just a few minutes away, so it shouldn't take long for us to get into position. So some of you may have realized where we are. We are on the Arethusa airstrip, and it's a beautiful area, this, that we are going to try and spend more time over here as the weeks progress. We've just been having a little bit of trouble with broadcasting from this area. We're a bit further away from Djuma, but that appears to have been fixed up, so we can start venturing further afield into Arethusa. So it won't be long until we can see this animal. And just to keep you updated, this channel is very busy, the Game Drive channel, as there's a lot of interest in this animal and there's a lot of people queuing up on standbys to view it. I just need to establish which is my best access, which hopefully this will work. but there is a lot of chatter going on my earpiece, so bear with me if I am not chatting too much. Well, would you believe it? This is the first cheetah that we've seen in many months of filming since the beginning of November last year. And that is why I was so excited. And this is a special moment. As you can see, she's got some blood on her mouth, and she does have a kill at the base of her feet. She'll be very cautious now, as the vegetation she's in is very thick, and she'll therefore be concerned that hyena, lion, or leopard, all of which would overpower her and potentially injure her, could be attracted to this position. I'm battling to see what it is that she's managed to kill, but it looks like it could be a duiker, which is a small antelope we get in this area.
It's always going to be a lot of grass. You just have to wait for him to sit up again.
And yes, having a look through my binoculars, just judging from the color of that coat, it does look to be a duiker. And she's going to do her best to feed on this duiker as quickly as possible. As like I say, she knows that at any moment another predator could arrive on the scene and chase her away from it. Well, apologies, I know the angle isn't great, but it's very thick here, and we are not really in a position to re-maneuver the vehicle in order to get a clearer shot, so So just to reiterate how lucky we are this morning, it's been close on 5 months of filming, and we've been here day in and day out, and this is the first time we've been able to show you a cheetah, and they are really magical cats. Some differences you may notice between the cheetah and the leopard that you were looking at just earlier, Mvula, is that the cheetah has solid black spots on its coat. It doesn't have a rosé like that of a leopard. And you can also see some black tear marks that run down her muzzle from her eyes. Those are also very characteristic features that differentiate the cheetah from the leopard. Now, I've heard that this is a female, and that does make sense judging from her body size. You'll also notice now that her head's up that she's got a much smaller head and less robust build than that of a leopard. So that's also something to help differentiate the two animals. We've just got a question through from Heart Giraffe on Twitter, and they're interested to know whether this is the only cheetah here, and yes it is. Cheetah are most often solitary, unless this female had cubs that she was busy raising. The females will typically move alone, and occasionally, yes, you will have males that form coalitions, often brothers, that may form coalitions of up to 3 or 4 individuals. But typically, just like most cats, they are solitary.
The road from Clem South to take out to the driveway, and there's a road approaching the extension set of carry on to the estate.
Now, not only have we hit the jackpot with our first cheetah sighting in close on 5 months, but the quality of the sighting is great. The fact that we can see her busy feeding is really fortunate. For those who get you later, they may find her fast asleep, full-bellied, under a tree. But we are very fortunate with our timing and with the sighting that's unfolding right here in front of us. Station on first standby for the skunk on. If I could just spend another 5 minutes here, that would be great, and then you can make your way. Again now, she's taken some time off from feeding to make sure that nothing's approaching, and so important for her to remain alert and not forget that she's in a very dangerous situation here. And we can see by her body language that she certainly is intent. And again, the habitat that she's made this kill in is very thick, so not a very good environment for her in terms of safety. We've just got a question through from Renee on Twitter, and Renee is interested to know what this cheetah will do once she's finished this kill. And my guess is that she would move off, Renee, and possibly even head off in search of something to drink. But she would like to remove herself from this area where there will be the scent of the duiker, and that would obviously potentially attract predators later on, and she would rather be away from that action when it unfolds. So you may have heard my radio call, and I have called in the vehicle on first standby and just let them know that we're only going to spend a few more minutes here. And it is so important for us to all share this great sighting, just as the other vehicles that were here before us moved out relatively quickly so that we could get in and see this cheetah. And what my plan is, just to keep you all updated, is that I will extract myself from this sighting but stay in the area, and that way, once all the other game drive vehicles have gone, we can potentially return to the sighting. And that may mean that we would have to broadcast overtime, but on a special scenario like this, that would not be a problem in the slightest. So that is my plan, to make space and hopefully return here a little bit later. Just got a great question that's come through from Alice. Morning, Alice. And Alice is interested to know whether a cheetah could hoist this kill up a tree, just like a leopard would, in order to get it away from potential danger on the ground. And the answer to that is no, Alice. Cheetahs are not at all good climbers, and leopard are by far the best cats in this area for climbing, and the only ones that will typically hoist their kills. So sadly, the cheetah does not have that escape route as an option. Her best option would be using her incredible speed, and it is important to remember that they are the fastest mammals on Earth. And that trait would most times allow them to escape from any danger, their incredible speed. Well, I'm just going to give it another minute or so, and then I'm going to move out. And like I say, there is a plan in place to come here a little bit later, so that's the best option I think we have at the moment. And I hope you've all really enjoyed the sighting of a cat that we so seldom see. Copy that, Nikki. Perfect. Station on first standby. I will be making space for you now. I think it might have been Roy, but I'm not too sure. My radio is not working well, Andrew.
Oh, but Roy was just here now. He's left.
Well, it'll be somebody. One last view of it while it's sitting up. And I fear it has got up because of our vehicle noise. It would muffle any approach of any other animals coming, so I'm going to continue going because our noise created by the vehicle would prevent her being able to hear any other animals accessing this area. And that would be why she did just poke her head up. What an incredible sighting that was, and I know it was brief, but it is the way it is, and it is important, like I say, for us all to be very sharing in a situation like this, a situation that's very rare in the Sabi Sands, and all the guides are so excited to have this opportunity to share with their guests, and for even themselves, guides spend months and months out here, day in and day out, and never get to see cheetah. What I'm hoping is that by staying nearby, all of these game viewers are going to take their guests back to the lodge for breakfast, and we are going to hang around and be able to follow this cheetah for as long as we possibly can. So, like I say, it could well be an extended broadcast, and we'll do whatever it takes to try and get us back into that sighting. Question through from Lulu on Twitter. Good morning, Lulu. And Lulu's interested to know which animals other than lion would pose a threat to her right now. And those animals include lion, like you said, and also leopard, as well as hyena. So all three of the major predators out here. Morning, how are you? Very good, nice to see you. Morning, folks. No worries. No worries, buddy. Enjoy. Cool. Leopard have even been known, Lulu, to kill cheetah and hoist them up the same tree that they've hoisted the kill that they've stolen from the cheetah. And there's some crazy photographs of an impala dangling over one branch in a tree, a cheetah over the other with the leopard in the middle. So leopard can and usually will overpower cheetah and can kill them. So in a confrontation situation, the cheetah will always run away if it can. But if it's caught unaware, the leopard may well kill the cheetah. And the same goes for hyena. All the predators have got incredible competition between one another, and when one is certainly strong enough to kill the other, they will. So it's only in situations when they're very evenly matched that they will prefer to avoid confrontation, because if it could go either way, they're not going to take that chance. So there's a lot of risks for cheetah in the Sabi Sands, and that is why they aren't too numerous here. There's a very high density of leopard as well as lion, as well as hyena. And the fact that there are so many of those apex predators here makes it very difficult for cheetah to do well. That, coupled with various other factors, like the fact that we've got very few open areas like we are driving through now. The majority of this habitat is fairly thick woodland, which doesn't suit a cheetah's lifestyle. The fastest mammal on earth obviously needs open plains to be able to chase down its prey, and there's very few of those here. Good question though, Lulu, and let's hope that this cheetah doesn't run into any trouble this morning. Question now from Lynn in Toronto. Good morning, Lynn. And Lynn is interested to know a little bit about the standby protocol or process when entering sightings such as this one. So there'll be a person within the sighting that is controlling that sighting, and that can vary, but it's often the most recent person to have joined the sighting. And in a regular sighting, there's a maximum of 3 vehicles within the sighting, of which one will be controlling it. The person who is controlling it will then allow 3 other vehicles in the nearby area to be on standby, either first standby, second standby, or third standby. And the process then continues and unfolds like that. In terms of how close you actually need to wait, or how far away you need to be from the actual sighting, it depends on the scenario, but as long as you are out of eyesight and earshot, that's usually far enough. So, as you would have noticed, I knew that they were in quite a thick area, and I was waiting probably not even a quarter of a mile away from them. So, it depends on the situation, but it's not a huge distance that you have to wait. And typically, if you are guiding with guests, as most of the other vehicles out here are doing, they would prefer to try and plan their approach timeously, and that way not drive and park in one place waiting with their guests, which makes perfect sense. You'd rather be driving around kind of looking for things, slowly getting into that area until you called in, and that is typically what the guides would do, rather than racing their guests into an area and sitting and parking, which is a benefit that we have because we've obviously got the benefits of switching between the two vehicles. So that's a little bit about the standby protocol. Here is the leopard, and there is the cheetah. Yeah. Okay. So, as you can see, the cheetah's spots are solid black spots, and it's got a very long and bushy tail, far bushier than that of a leopard's. And you'll also notice the top image isn't great, but you can see the tear mark running down from the eye along the muzzle of the cheetah. They're also quite slender, built for speed, and are less robust than the leopard that I'm about to show you now. Now also, on average, the weight of cheetah would be around 40 to 60 kilograms as a rough rule, and the males would typically be heavier than the females, but that's an average weight that you would find of cheetah, whereas leopards would be anywhere from 40 to 100 kilograms, so considerably larger than the cheetah. Now, as I page over, you'll notice this leopard who lacks the tear mark running down the eye and the muzzle, and its spots are built into a rosette, so they're not round, perfect spots like that of a cheetah. It's more of a rosé with a caramel tinge in the center of it. And there's actually a perfect comparison in the picture at the base here. And you'll notice, well, you tell me, which is at the top and which is at the bottom. So I hope you can see that clearly, but you should be able to distinguish the animal on the top picture against the animal on the bottom picture. So those are the main differences between the cheetah and the leopard, and difficult to tell in this photograph to compare with the previous cheetah photograph because the cheetah was standing, but the leopards are far more bulky and robust than the cheetah. We've just got a question through from, sorry, let me just confirm who that's from. I think it's Jerry or Derry in Maryland. Anyway, welcome on board, and they're interested to know whether the cheetah was old or young, and to be honest, I don't consider myself a cheetah expert. I've spent the majority of my guiding career in areas where we don't have great cheetah viewing, and therefore haven't spent much time viewing them, and therefore don't know a huge amount about them. So it'll be difficult to age that specific cheetah. What I can say, though, is that she looked in great condition. She certainly didn't look like she was very old, but I wouldn't be able to hazard a guess as to how old she was, as I simply just have not spent enough time with cheetah. And just like humans, it can be very difficult to gauge the age of a human just by looking at them. And it's the same for animals. Animals of the same age can vary greatly in their appearance. So the only solid way of knowing is to actually know the birth dates of those animals, which in some cases people do know, especially, you know, for lions and leopards in this area. We keep such close tabs on them that we can know exactly how old they are almost to the day. But with this cheetah, I'm not exactly sure. I'll certainly ask the guides, but I'm fairly certain none of them will have concrete information as to how old she is. Vicky's just asked a question regarding how a cheetah would look after its cubs and protect its cubs. And the best way that a cheetah could do that would be to avoid conflict areas and keep them out of harm's way. Now, if the cheetah does come across any kind of predators or animals that could cause harm to her cubs, she may well try and defend them, and what cheetah can do and will do is they will run forward using their two front legs that they beat down in front of them. It's a very specific a kind of attack that they like to use when confronting hyena and other animals, but it would very seldom be to a point of actual confrontation. She would try and chase them off as much as she can, but not to a point of actual contact, because they know very well that they are not built for confrontation with the bigger predators, but they may try and bluff and put up a bit of a show, which would potentially give the cubs time to run off and hide. But it is a problem that cheetah face in this area. They do not have a perfect solution for protecting their cubs, and therefore a lot of cubs that are born into the Sabi Sands would probably not make it, because there are so many external threats, and that's why we've got low cheetah populations here. Just got a question through from Anna on Twitter, and it's also relates to another question we had earlier, asking whether the cheetah could climb a tree and hoist the kill up a tree. And Anna's question is asking about the claws of the cheetah and saying, aren't they non-retractable? Now, we have to be careful with the terminology here, because it can be a little bit confusing. But basically, a cheetah's claws are always extended or protracted. So, unlike the other cats, the lion and the leopard, when a lion and leopard is walking down the road, you'll have no sign of it having any claws. The lion and leopard would protract them forward when they are wanting to latch on to prey, and therefore that is the only time that their claws will come out of their sheath, when they are in attack or potentially when they are sprinting. Now, a cheetah does not have that option. Its claws are always out and cannot protract them out any further for climbing, and therefore they are not sharp like a lion or leopard's claws. They're more like the claws of a dog. So it's a very good point that Anna's brought up, and their foot structure and claw structure is considerably different to lion and leopard. Therefore, it also helps us when tracking cheetah, because we can see their claws at the fronts of their little pug marks. We've just got a question through from Bob in Iowa, and Bob's obviously picked up on the big bushy tail of the cheetah that I pointed out when I was comparing the differences between the leopard and the cheetah in my book. And Bob's interested to know how the tail of the cheetah helps in its hunting. And it does help greatly in its hunting abilities, because it acts as a balancing rod, and they've got some incredible footage on various documentaries of cheetah hunting, and you can see how they swing their tail from side to side in order to help them balance at the incredibly fast speeds that they're traveling at. And Nikki, would you mind cutting across to Mark for a few minutes? We are going to extend the broadcast, so I can carry on answering questions later, and I can just then chat with the Game Drive channel and try and work out when I'm going to be able to get back in there. So what a morning it's been, and as you've heard, we're going to cut back to Mark and hopefully then we'll be able to return into that sighting. I just want to be able to chat to the guys on the Game Drive channel, and I believe there are a lot of questions that have come flooding through regarding Cheetah, and we'll continue to continue working through them. But for now, I just want to try and make sure I know what's going on here, and we'll catch up with you a little bit later.
Hi everybody, fantastic news that we've got a cheetah. I was so amazed to hear it on the radio when we were sitting with Mbula. It's really fantastic. Our first cheetah on camera for this particular series of our broadcasts. I've been waiting for this day. Good news is that she is at Arathusa airstrip, and there's a good chance, having come up from the south maybe, that she might move this way and we might be able to, I don't know, if we're really, really lucky, she might come on to Gari, maybe Pile of Plains or Sandy Patch or something. If she is a cheetah that is familiar with this area, great to have that. At Gari Dam now, I gave up on Mbula. Towards the end, just before we were going to cross to Scott, he got up and he started moving into the bush, and the vehicles started maneuvering to leave the sighting, and well, we had one little mishap, and now I got an extra dent in Wendy. So when all of that commotion settled, he disappeared into some thick bush. I spent the last, I don't know, half hour or so trying to look for him, to no avail. Very, very dense where he went in. I've also driven those roads a few times to see if he would come out again, but he hasn't. Maybe this afternoon we can find his tracks. But are now regular visitors to Gari Dam, a pair of saddle-bulled storks, the dam dropping very, very fast, the water level, and that's making it a lot easier for them for fishing or frogging. There is also a heron here. Now, often people mistake herons and storks and cranes. Unfortunately, I can't show you a crane, but to show you the difference between a stork and a heron, notice how very heavy the stork's bodies are, and the comparison between the size of the beak of a stork and its head and neck. If I could just get to see this heron without it flying. It's sitting in the dead tree here. I don't know if it's going to let us see it, or if we're going to get a view of it. Forward a little bit. We're missing its neck. You can see its head sticking up above the branch, and then its body below. And you can see a much smaller, very narrow beak in proportion to the head and the neck size. Little grey heron, perhaps somewhat displaced by the presence of the two much larger saddle-bulled storks. Christy from Atlanta. I'm going to head up to quarantine, see if we can find not only a herd of zebra that were around, although they've probably moved off of the open area. There were some ellies around too. Not much left to drive. Why are cheetahs so rare? Well, perhaps a lot of it has got to do with inbreeding. Cheetah throughout Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, let's put it that way, Africa south of the Sahara, all stem from a very, very narrow gene pool, and so their genetics are not very strong. They're one of those creatures who has a dying niche in nature. We have experienced this throughout history. Mammals that somehow become outcompeted in their own niches because there are other animals that have managed to perform that function that they do better or more efficiently, able to breed better. I think largely it's also habitat loss, the shrinking of their habitat. Cheetah are very specific in their habitat, being open plains grassland hunters, and any grassland where their former range was taken over by either cattle or sheep or domestic farming, or maybe for other forms of agriculture, and any form of farming, cheetah then become a threat to farmers, so they have been persecuted quite extensively in the past. So it's been a natural die-out of cheetah, not die-out, but just a natural decline in cheetah numbers because they're not a very stable species from that point of view, but also because of man's intervention and man's pressure and habitat loss of cheetah. Their numbers are still fairly stable here in the park, I think. I don't know what number of cheetah there are within Kruger, but unfortunately we here at Djuma don't quite have the habitat that cheetah require. This would be a perfect spot for cheetah out here on quarantine, but it would be no good for any length of time. Cheetah would be able to spend a day or two, maximum of a few days here, before they can no longer hunt because the animals will get so used to their presence and the animals will keep away from them. So they are likely to move through Djuma, and we've had that many times in the past. We've had cheetah actually moving through Djuma. We've watched them hunt, we've watched them with their cubs. Very special moments when we do have them, rare moments and very special, but it's one of the things that gets us waking up every morning, that possibility, that chance. Little remote chance that we're going to bump into a cheetah. And well, today was the day. We were lucky to be called in to that one in Arathusa. I think Scott is going to try and get back in to see that cheetah, so we might run a little bit late. We might lose a little bit more sleep out there in the world. Any way to tell between a male and a female cheetah? Mostly size and hello Kevin. That's Kevin in Boston. Males tend to be bulkier, they tend to be bigger, heavier shoulders, thicker neck, and of course their heads are head of a male cheetah. But I suppose when you've got a young male and a female, a young male cheetah that's the same size as, say, an adult female, looking from the front, it can be very difficult. And of course, one of the main things of sexing an animal when you are able to is looking at genitals. And with male cheetahs, very similar to a leopard or a lion, you do get to see the scrotum under the tail. Male cheetahs often in coalitions with their brothers, and then again you'll often find that females will be with cubs. So if you find a cheetah with youngsters, you know, invariably it's going to be a female with cubs. It's perhaps a bit late in the morning for these zebras to still be out in the open, because by now they'd probably be in the tree line grazing, and might come back out again this afternoon. It was a nice little herd size that we saw last evening coming back from drive. I'm going to say goodbye. We're going to go back to Scott, from Jason in the back, and myself, Mark. Thank you for joining us this morning. Great to have found Mvula. And we did have a couple of ellies. Maybe this afternoon we'll be lucky again. Sky is clearing and we're in for a good day. And I'll see you later. Love you lots. Goodbye.
Welcome back, and great news. It didn't take long and we've already been allowed back into the sighting. And the guy that we let in to go and have a quick look was under huge time pressure. His guests are flying out on an early flight, so just as well we did make space for them, because it would have been tragic if his guests missed out on that opportunity just because they had an early flight out this morning. blessed by some cloud cover today, which is keeping things nice and cool. And it'll be really interesting to see what happens with this cheetah. I've got a feeling it's going to be able to finish off the majority of this kill in one sitting and will then move off. And it'll be great for us to be able to follow it, hopefully to some water, and even be able to see it drinking. So that's my kind of thought process and what I'm hoping to happen. But regardless of what does happen, just to be able to go back and view it right now for a few moments is good enough. Notice that another vehicle's parked in a position that's going to not give us a great angle if we approach from this side. So I'm going to just do a different approach, which will actually be great because that way we'll get a slightly different angle than the one we had before. So a blessing in disguise that that other vehicle is parked in basically our spot from last time. Good idea. Again, it could well be that she's lifted her head up due to the fact that we've been approaching the sighting, and therefore it would have muffled any other noises that she may have liked to have heard of any predators approaching. But now that we've gone silent, she can resume her feeding. And unlike leopard and lion to a degree, who have less of a rush to finish their kill, cheetah are often under huge time pressure to finish whatever they've caught, because again they know that there's a host of other carnivores out here that would overpower them if they caught wind of a kill in this position. What's interesting to take note of here is that even though I did mention earlier that cheetah prefer open plains where they can unleash their incredible speeds of over 100 kilometers an hour, over 60 miles an hour, they can maneuver. But despite preferring hunting in open territory, they can also hunt very effectively even in quite well-wooded areas, and as you can see by the area that we're in now, it's very thick, yet the cheetah still managed to catch the duiker in here, and that large tail would have certainly aided in the cheetah's balance in hunting and maneuvering through this thick vegetation as she would have chased down this prey. we've just got a question through from Katrina asking whether cheetahs can have heart attacks from exerting too much energy or power when chasing down their prey. And yes, potentially they could, but it very seldom happens because naturally they know when to stop, but they do have a threshold where they do need to be careful, and they do need to not overexert themselves when chasing down prey, especially over longer distances. So that is something that the cheetah do have to factor in when they are hunting. But I think very seldomly would a cheetah ever actually overstep that threshold and cause themselves to die, be it from a heart attack or simply from overheating. But very often, Katrina, when cheetah have managed to bring down their prey, they need to take several minutes to regain their breath and cool down before they can start feeding. So it certainly is an interesting fact about cheetahs that they can really push their body right to the limits in order to take down their prey. And she'll continue to pick up her head and scan around and make sure nothing's approaching as she continues to feed through this duiker. Now, because it is a smaller kill, I do think it's possible for her to finish it, like I say, in one sitting and then move off. And that'll be great for our viewing because it'll allow us to hopefully see her on the move. However, if she had have made a bigger kill, for example, like that of an impala, potentially even a kudu, then she may take the risk of hanging around and trying to feed on it for as long as she can before any predators may detect it. And there are huge areas out here, so even though the smell from this kill will be a very strong one, there may not be any predators nearby to pick up on that sense. And now it was the wind that picked up very, very slightly, but caused the vegetation to rustle, and that's what got her up now. So it's not just the vehicles that will cause her to pop up and focus intently on what may be arriving. It's also the wind. Well, with regards to differentiating between the two pictures of the coats of the leopard and the cheetah, well done. Nikki says there's been a stream of answers that have come through, and all of you have been right, so well done to all of you who did put through your answers to that little quiz, differentiating the spots of a cheetah to that of the rosette of a leopard.
for over 50 years.
And so happy that we can finally actually show you the differences
They
rather than just talk about it.
It is introduced even in the local villages. We know nothing about agriculture. When we see animals, we see food. So we are well encouraged. They introducing everything so that everybody, please let's take care of the animals. Cheetah in some projects that is taught even in the children's schools.
Well, we certainly have got lucky with the angle, especially now that she's repositioned. We couldn't ask for a better angle.
Or many different animals to take care of the cheetahs. So those little have been left in the So to be alone, it is not a first part.
You may notice she may start to use her tongue to try and lick off the fur as she starts to feed on the neck of this duiker. And the predators will try and remove as much fur as possible before feeding. That's not to say that a lot of fur is not is ingested, and just like domestic cats, the lion, leopard and cheetah will all cough out fur balls at a later stage.
I'm ready to move on. We'll go forward.
Just got a question through from Deborah, and she's interested to know whether the cheetah did in fact take some time to cool down before it started feeding on this kill. And it's a question that I'm sadly not going to be able to answer right now. Most of the game drive vehicles have already closed down and are no longer available to chat to on the radio, but I would like to chat with them later, and certainly would be interested to find out if somebody was even here to witness the kill. And I'm going to continue once I've just parked the out of there. I don't need to move. Thanks very much.
Yeah. What is that internet address again for if I need to get you?
The easiest access is www.wildsafari.live.
www.wildsafari.live.
Yeah, .com.
Did you get it?
Cheers, folks. Have a good morning. Okay, well, I feel we can get into a slightly better position, so just bear with me for 1 second as we just creep a little bit closer. You'll also notice a feature of cheetah that differentiates them from leopard is that they appear to have somewhat of a mohawk that runs down their spine from the base of their head, and it really is pronounced at the moment with a current pose, but it is another feature that differentiates cheetah from leopard. Baby cheetah will have an incredibly beautiful mohawk that's considerably longer than their parents and white in coloration. But that fades to a low hawk as they grow up. we've just got a question through from my mother in Durban, which is a city on the east coast of South Africa. Good morning, Mom, and welcome along. My mother's interested to know how you would differentiate between individual cheetah, as we do with the leopard, and they don't have the same whisker patterns that are typically used to differentiate different leopards, but they do all have their own unique spot pattern on their coat. So by looking at the various spots on the face, one would be able to get to know the individual cheetah. In the Sabi Sands, however, we see so few cheetah that differentiating them makes it quite easy, because it's typically only kind of one female or a couple of males that we may see at any given stage. So it's typically not a problem we are faced with. But in other areas of Africa where cheetah are more common, they will use the variously different spots on their face to help distinguish. You'll notice now on her cheeks, she's got a certain pattern on each cheek. Thanks for that question, Mom. I hope you are having a good time enjoying this cheetah sighting. Well, it doesn't get better than this. The only vehicle here now enjoying a truly spectacular sighting of an animal that, again, we haven't 5 months. Just got a question through from Tony in Holland. And Tony's interested to know that whether if this cheetah had cubs, would she change her hunting techniques, and would she feed on the kill first before allowing the cubs to feed? And I think yes, to a degree it may change its hunting pattern, in that it would have to somehow warn close while she's stalking up to the prey. So it will have an impact on her hunting, certainly. In terms of the prey that she takes on, she will necessarily target larger prey. She will always target the easiest prey available to her, be it big or small. Even though there are more mouths to feed, she would rather take the easiest option, and hopefully then a more guaranteed meal, than risk trying to catch bigger prey that may be more difficult to take down. They will always take the easiest option. So I don't think it will influence the species of prey that she would target. And with regards to feeding, I think a lot depends on her current hunger and also how much energy she's exerted on the hunt. The cubs may see her make the kill, and she may be so exhausted that naturally she would be catching her breath while the cubs feed on the kill. Yet if she was very, very hungry, she would typically feed herself first, because she is the most important member of the family, and it's no good having 3 full-bellied cubs and a hungry and undernourished mother that cannot feed them. So typically the adults look after themselves first here in nature, which does make the most sense. Now, she's getting very close to finishing off this carcass, and it'll be very interesting to see how much longer she stays here. I'm thinking that it's not going to be long before she gets on the move, and wouldn't that be wonderful? Her jaw is certainly not designed to crunch through much of the larger bones. And that she will leave here for a lucky hyena or other animal who comes across this carcass. But there will be some here that we've just got a question through from Elizabeth in Indianapolis, I believe. Morning and welcome on board. Elizabeth's interested to know what is a king cheetah, and what I'll do is I'll find the picture in my book and show you exactly what a king cheetah looks like. But basically all it is a different genetic strain that essentially makes it melanistic or darker, just as you would get melanistic leopard, which are pitch black. This essentially is a melanistic cheetah, also called a king cheetah. And what beautiful markings. I've never seen one, and would be wonderful to see one day, but they aren't very common, especially not in the wild. Thanks, Fiam. RC in the Netherlands, good morning. Now RC has noticed that it's not very noisy here. There's not many birds alarm calling or squirrels alarm calling, and that's merely because this cheetah has got lucky. I think the fact that it is in fairly thick vegetation makes any squirrels in the surrounding area and or birds, it makes it a little bit more difficult for them to see her. But it also could simply be that there are not very many squirrels in this immediate area. If they were, they certainly would be alarm calling at her. What has she heard? But just like that, without any notice, I think she's abandoning the kill. As I said, I think she would. She may just be going to lie up, and I'm going to give it a moment or two just to see. But I think she's... She's very nervous and wants to get out of this area as soon as possible. I don't think she's planning on lying up here and eating any more of that kill. And this is the moment we've been hoping for, to get her on the move. And I'm going to have to, excuse me, concentrate here because it's quite thick vegetation. I don't want to lose her. But thankfully in these little vehicles, which are considerably shorter than the regular game drive vehicles, we're quite maneuverable. It's just going to make filming difficult, but bear with us. She will pop out into an open clearing at some point where we can try and film her. Try and get on the other side of this termite mound quickly, Viam. There's a chance she might pop up onto it. Watch out, there's a few holes here. Not coming to the termite mound. Although she's just She's changed direction a little bit, so maybe she will. And cheetahs are notorious for climbing up termite mounds to get a good vantage point. Lisa on Twitter is interested to know that, or why she's very nervous, and are cheetah usually this nervous? And the reason why she's nervous is because she knows full well that other predators could have been attracted to that kill. There's a very strong chance that that duiker would have let out a very loud bleating kind of a squeal when it was caught, which not all antelope make, but the duiker do. And that audio could have attracted animals from far and wide, as well as just the scent coming from the kill. And that is why she's nervous. And yes, typically cheetah are nervous animals because they have very good reason to be. They are the weakest of the top predators in this area and rank far below leopard, lion, and cheetah. Leopard, lion, and hyena, sorry. The good news is this cheetah's heading kind of towards Juma now, so maybe she'll be on the Juma property this afternoon. As you can see, she's not nervous about our presence, that's for certain. And this is wonderful.
That's the heat.
Oh, well, there we go. That explains that, VM. Well done, VM, for pointing that out. It's a male, and that confirms just how much I know about sexing cheetah. I heard it was a female on the radio. But well done, VM, for pointing that out. It is a male, and it's not easy to distinguish the two. I'm sure if a male was standing next to a female, that would be a different story. Got a question through from a young 5-year-old called Elia. Good morning, Elia, and I hope you're enjoying having a look at this cheetah with us. They're such beautiful animals. Now, Elia's interested to know what would happen if this cheetah saw human, and I guess on foot, that means if we were walking. Elia, typically cheetah are not very aggressive to humans, and there's a very small chance that they would attack us as a human, whereas lion and leopard would be more likely to cause a problem for us humans. I think it's still quite a way before we pop out onto a road, but I think when we do, hopefully she would start using that as it's a path of least resistance, and the animals typically like to take those paths of least resistance. Hiya, good morning and welcome along. Sherry's interested to know where cheetah like to sleep. Do they sleep out in the open or do they have caves or dens? And they don't have caves or dens even when they've got cubs. They just keep them out in the open and in thickets where the cubs will hide. So they don't use caves or den sites. Weaving a little bit, which makes our job of following her a little bit more tricky, but not to worry. Sorry, apologies, he. There he is. Keep an eye on him. This is a bigger loop than we would have liked to have taken, but the vegetation is dictating where we can drive and where we can't. We're still good. Still had a brief glimpse of him. There it goes. Going up there, Viet. He's tied. We'll stop for a brief shot of him, but as you can see, he's moving very quickly. And we do need to just focus on trying to stay with him because it would be easy to lose him in this thick vegetation. I wish I knew where we were, but I've got a vague idea. Not a problem though, as long as we stay with the cheetah, we can find our way out of this situation a bit later. So our main goal is to just keep an eye on this beautiful creature and try and enjoy the sighting for as long as we can, because it could be another 5 months until we see the next one. By us keeping tabs on it though, it certainly is going to help us potentially, but certainly the other game drive vehicles a bit later in the relocation of this animal. Whereas if we weren't with it now, nobody would have a clue of where to start looking for it. Kept it a little bit too tight. A lot of these trees that we're driving over are just popping up as we go over them. So we're not causing as much damage as it appears we are. Or as that appears we could be. Oh yay, there's a road. That's a good sign, spider web. So now that it's on the road, I'm hoping it's going to stay on it for a while. Unless it's already just crossed straight over. It could have. It's moving so quickly that I don't know if it's either on the right of the road still, which I'm hoping, or if it in fact has already crossed over. Keep an eye behind us here and make sure it doesn't slink behind us. I'm almost certain it would have spent a little bit of time on the road had it have made it here. Come on, where are you hiding? What do you think, Fiam? What do you think, Fiam?
Might have gone across.
Yeah,
The tractor deviated on the tracks.
exactly. Well, folks, we are going to keep looking around, but I don't think we're going to have any luck. If we haven't found it now, we can't traverse the property to our left, and that is the direction it was heading in. So, sadly, that incredible sighting has come to a close, but how lucky have we been this morning, and so happy to have been able to share it with all of you. I hope you've enjoyed every second of it, and until this afternoon, it's goodbye from myself and Viam on camera, who's done a great job today. Thanks, Viam. And to Nikki in the final control. And we look forward to catching up on this afternoon's adventure.
I think he's trying to mate. I think he's just following her. Looks like.
This is a position I have never seen a hyena sleep in. And or any animal, I don't think. Even a domestic dog or cat has yet to perform this strange